Hello and welcome back to our live stream. Super exciting things happening. We're just waiting for a couple of our people to jump on so we can start some tech conversations because being in tech is obviously really important and we're really excited to share that with everybody. So we're just going to get some of our creators going on here and we're going to start talking about how to break into tech because I know that's a question that everybody has been having lately, which is super exciting. So I think our creators are joining us. So today is how to break into tech. So we got a ton of questions from last time, so we're gonna pick up where we left off, which is awesome. Hello, Dom. How are you?
Hey, Olivia, I'm really good. Yourself?
Good. It's good to see you.
Nice, good to see you too. Love your hair.
Thank you. I did something a little bit different today, something special for the live. I see that Ziad and Louise are joining us as well. This is super exciting. We have all of our creators on, and we're going to start the conversation. Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, Ziad. How are you doing?
Doing pretty well. How about you guys?
Pretty darn good.
Awesome.
Perfect. Okay, well, let's jump right into it. So, thank you all for joining our live today. So, our topic today is how to break into tech. We are here every Wednesday at 11:30. I think it's 12:30 Eastern time now, because there is a time change. I really need to get that figured out what time it's at. And we're going to be answering questions from our creators today about how to break into tech. So, we're going to jump right into it. And if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat box below. We'll make sure to answer them during the live at some point in time. We're always welcome to answer any of your questions. So we'll start off strong. Ziad, I see you at the top of my screen, so I'll start with you. How can you grow in a company?
How can you grow in a company? Yeah, I'm guessing this is like as a software engineer. So like in particular when you're just entering like the tech world, I think it's really important to like take mentors on so you can like know how to kind of start off right because software engineering is one of those fields that's like really wide in knowledge and there's so many like things that you need to learn and even if you do college or a boot camp or something you still know such like a small percentage of what you need to succeed in your career. So I think my number one personal tip would definitely be taking on a mentor, multiple if you can. Try to really learn from more experienced people. And when you're working at an engineering company, it's pretty like it's pretty easy to find people who are doing kind of like similar roles as you, but at the same time much higher level. So there's usually a lot to learn from. And definitely write lots of code because the more you write, you get closer to that 10,000 hours of like mastery of a skill, the better you are. So find a mentor and write lots of code.
Cool. That's a really good answer. Dweez, how would you grow in a company or even grow in your role as like a software engineer or anything in the tech world, really?
I think, like Ziad said, it's important that you have a mentor, that someone with more experience than you, because yeah, then you take things from them, and that's always a good thing, of course. To have someone there that can help you. I think also if there are certain skills in tech that you can learn on your own as well next to working, I think that can also help you out. For example, I'm just giving a very simple example, you learn a programming language extra on the side, or small things like this I think can help you, especially if they add value to the goals of the company you are working for, or they have certain things that they want to work towards. You can definitely capitalize off of these things.
Definitely. That's a great answer. We're starting off strong with 99. Do you guys know if they're coins or are they points or something?
I think
Oh wow,
gift has like
thank you. I don't know who gave that.
yeah, each gift has like a certain amount of points associated with it, I think, but not 100% sure. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, that's cool. I just didn't know what to refer them as. Dom, we'll jump over to you for this. So how can you grow like within a company, within your role? I'll expand even more.
Sure. So yeah, definitely agree with guys. Like mentorship is it's really important for growth, writing as much code as possible. So yeah, ideally you want to discuss a lot about your code on pull requests. Basically, pull requests are since you work on a copy on a code of your real application, not on the real application, that would make a lot of problems. every time you do some code changes before merging that code to the main application, you can see the code difference, and that's a great place for other more experienced engineers come and give advice like what's good here, what's bad. But yeah, you should always like seek mentors. You should always like that should be your number one priority, because the field is so massive that if you have a great mentor, you can learn a lot of things in 6 months. But if you're just doing stuff on your own in a company, you can literally spend a year without. You will still learn a lot, but with a mentor, that's going to be like a whole new level. And in addition to that, I would add ask questions. Like, not there are no dumb questions. Thanks for the gifts. Yeah, there are no dumb questions or anything. Like, just ask a lot of questions. I know that people who are just starting, I was the same. Like, I was thinking like, oh, will I embarrass myself if I say ask something like this, or is it expected of me to know that? But no, like the more senior you grow, the more questions you ask, and it's kind of like a normal stage. But I would say like immediately ask even more questions, because there are no stupid questions. Just ask and ask and ask. The more questions you ask, the better.
Definitely. Great answers, you guys. I feel like that was very helpful. We have our first question in the chat, and I see Ziad responded to it. So let's just jump right into it. I'm excited to get to know our audience a little more and what questions they have. So the question is, can you get a job just knowing HTML and CSS? Ziad, do you want to take it away with the start of this one?
Sure, yeah. I think like either way, when you enter a job, you're gonna not know everything. Kind of like similar to our last question, like you're gonna learn a lot on the job anyways and get mentorship and work on real projects. I think like a bare minimum to go into any like you're asking about HTML and CSS, so I'm guessing you're talking about like web development roles in particular. You definitely have a good foundation if you just know HTML and CSS, like good enough to definitely jump into that work experience, and then like on the job or as we said, like on the side, you can learn like some frameworks like React or Angular or whatnot, so you can like get up to speed with what is kind of used professionally these days. But I think like knowing any foundation is good enough to like add value to a company. So I definitely think yeah, like knowing HTML and CSS and being pretty fluent is more than good enough to start out.
Definitely.
Like gift, Wild Roman.
We're getting a bidding war going on here. It's exciting. Louise, we'll go down the list again. Do you have anything to add to that with HTML and CSS?
No, I think I agree with Ziad. It's definitely a solid foundation. Maybe it could be handy. It's always handy to know React, especially if you're into front-end development. But I think that it definitely you can do a lot with HTML and CSS. You're more restricted as opposed to someone who knows React, JavaScript, React. But I think it's a solid foundation, as Ziad just said.
Definitely. That's a great answer to piggyback off that. Dom, do you have anything more to add to this overviewing question?
Yep. So first, Bushra, thanks for all the roses gifts. They're wonderful. So yeah, just keep sending the gifts. That really motivates us to. We give good answers, but yeah, with gifts, we're even more motivated.
Give better answers.
Yeah. That's our food for live sessions. And yeah, like HTML and CSS, it is a good foundation. But with HTML and CSS, you can just build completely static websites, and it is possible to get a job. But oh wow, thank you. It is possible to get a job, but I would recommend adding. You don't need to add like JavaScript frameworks like React, Angular, Vue, or those, but just at least knowing some JavaScript would be helpful. It's not like it's not possible to get a job just with HTML and CSS, but many companies will also require JavaScript. So like you'll just have more opportunities to pick from if you add JavaScript in that play.
Definitely. Great overviewing answer. I love that. Thank you guys so much for sharing. And don't forget to follow us. I know we have quite a few people in the chat right now. A lot of these questions that we're answering, we actually answer in a lot of our creator videos, and all of our creators make content for our channel, which is super exciting. So feel free to give us a follow. And again, please feel free to answer as many questions and ask as many questions in the chat, because we want to answer them all and really get to the bottom of what you guys are curious to learn about. So I see we have another question in the chat, so we'll jump right into it. I'm just trying to look for it right now. The question is, what would you do if you've been asked to do new technology that you're not accustomed to? And Ziad, I also saw that you jumped in for that one, so I'll give you that one for sure. So jump right in.
Yeah, I've definitely had this experience pretty recently where it's not necessarily like a new programming language, but it's more like kind of like you mentioned, just a new like piece of tech that the company wants to work with for some specific use case. And if it's totally unfamiliar for you, honestly, like you have to go out of your way to like read into it. Like the cool thing about like programming and like the tech industry in general is that documentation is usually really strong. So like as long as you're proactive and you go out of your way to like go on Google, see what others have like said about this particular piece of technology. If it's open source, like go and play with it yourself, like try to build a little side project using the tech so you can explore it a little bit. And that's definitely the number one way that you can like add value to your company when they start using that technology. Like we at my company, we started using something called Temporal, which is like this weird way of like managing workflows in code, and I had no clue what the heck that was, but like after a couple of days of just reading articles and watching some YouTube videos, like explanations, stuff like that, I had enough of a grasp on it to like go ahead and use it in the company. And the cool thing is that you're going to find is that like everybody in the company probably doesn't know what this like specific technology is. Usually what happens is like the company faces a particular problem that they're trying to solve. One person in that company has like previous experience with that problem and knows a good solution, so they suggest that piece of technology to everybody else. And even though they might not say it, most people probably don't know that technology that well. So like to stand out and to really be valuable, you need to go out of your way to play around with the tech, read into it. And what you'll realize is that like at the end of the day, any piece of technology, it's just if statements and for loops. It's just doing a bunch of like abstracted things on top of it. So if you go in with the mentality that like you can learn anything pretty much once you know the foundations of code, you'll find that you're going to find a lot of success with those new pieces of tech.
Great answer. That's awesome. Other guys in the group, please, and Dom, do you guys have anything to add to this conversation here, or do you think Ziad encapsulated it well?
Yeah, well, to go back to the original question, that is, which advice I would give myself in the beginning. And that is, I think most people, it's hard for them to admit what they don't know. So if you don't know something, I think you should just be vocal about it. And again, as Ziad and Dom, as we all were discussing earlier, if you have a mentor in the very beginning, or someone that you can always refer to when you have questions or things you don't understand, you should make good use of this. Because what you find is not only in tech, but in general, or yeah, in tech also, specifically for tech, we are people don't tend to admit to themselves what they don't know. And you are just making it harder for yourself, because then the others won't take this into consideration when they are, I don't know, you're working on a specific project, or there are certain tasks that need to be done. The others are unaware of this. So I think just being able to say that you are willing to learn, that you don't know something, but you would still like to continue learning on more, I think that is, it comes down to the same thing here.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. Dom, do you want to jump into this?
Sure. Do you maybe just want to repeat the question?
Yeah, I literally am scrolling back to try to find it here because it was a long one. What do you do if you've been asked to do a technology that you're not accustomed to?
Yep. Yeah. As Ziad said, like reading docs, That's a cool thing. And other one I would recommend is maybe just either ask somebody in the company if they already have some experience to either mentor you about it, or if they could recommend some short course about it. That's also always helpful. You can jump straight into it and just learn as it, but yeah, at least either I don't prefer reading docs as learning, so it's more like I read docs when I want to solve a problem, and then I like read the docs and just read the whole documentation and then start using something. But I prefer courses because then courses summarize the most important things that this technology is used for and its most used features and everything. So I think that's a good start.
Great answer. Thanks, guys. Okay, so we have another question. We actually have a couple, so we'll skip through them here. I think the next question is: my new company I'm working at uses MuleSoft. Any tips on how to learn new tech on the job? Does anybody want to take this first? It's kind of very similar to last.
I'm not particularly
Yeah,
familiar with MuleSoft. Does anyone else?
I don't know. I don't have experience with MuleSoft either, but I completely digress from the question earlier, by the way. But it's the same principles. Like you just got to, yeah. If you're learning on the job, I guess it's a matter of yeah working together with someone that has experience in whatever technology. And someone did say also in the chat that it's more about the. Let me see if I can find it real quick. That it's more about the logic, the problem solving behind it rather than the technology. Like if you have, for example, learned other languages, then it's a matter of learning how to solve problem in a different language, but the problem itself, the way you solve it, that's what you need to learn when you're working with the new technology. The pathway you take to solve it may be a bit different because how you write it is different. But it's in the bigger scheme of things, it's more about how you approach the problem solving. Someone said that in the chat. I think I agree with what they said.
Definitely, I would agree with that too. You just need to kind of step out. The mentor do helps, and then take some courses. Definitely. Dom, do you have anything to add to this? MuleSoft.
No, I think that's it. I think it's kind of covered. I think it was kind of covered with the last question. Just adopting new technology. So yeah, docs, courses, mentors.
Love it. Awesome. Honestly, that's a really good question. It's very basic, very straight to the point. Perfect. So next question in the chat is: I'm planning to be a full stack web developer. What is the best advice? Who wants to take it away?
I can.
Jump on in.
Yep. So for a full stack web developer, it is a bit hard to start learning everything at once, front end and back end. So you need to pick one and start because there are just too many. Even if you want to go just into front end or just back end, there's so much. So yeah, definitely you need to shortlist one thing. I would suggest front end because you can start with HTML and CSS, which are okay. CSS doesn't need to be that simple, but yeah, HTML is pretty simple. You can do some basic stylings that can also be pretty simple, and then you can add JavaScript there, and that could motivate you because you will be able to see something you create on the screen. So I don't know, you'll create a website or a simple app, and yeah, after you're done with like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, then you can like either pick some JavaScript framework like React or Vue, or you can decide to go on backend and start learning backend core things. I don't know, for example, around APIs, how do they work, and try to connect like your front end to backend. It's a cool thing because you can use JavaScript for everything. Because yeah, you can use on the front end like pure JavaScript, or in the form of React or Vue. On the back end, you can use Node.js. But yeah, I would suggest starting with front end first, and then when you are able to create like websites and simple applications, then just start learning backend and add some stuff there. Add some. You don't even need to add databases at the beginning, but you can use some other services for that, like Firebase. But you can also add like databases in the simplest possible format, like I don't know, either MySQL or I don't know MongoDB, or I mean that's a whole other debate about databases. But yeah, so that would be like start with front end, then go later to back end.
Fantastic. Ziad, do you guys have anything to add to this?
I think, yeah, I think Dom pretty much summed it up for me.
Perfect. We're all in agreement on that. I love it. We have a specific question throwing back to Dom for this. So he shouts out, he goes, JavaScript whiz, can you explain intersection observer?
Yeah. So what is intersection observer? So I'll give an example. Let's say you sometimes scroll on a website or in any app, and then as you scroll, some other items just appear magically, like either fading or they have some other sort of an animation. And this is just one of the examples of intersection observer in the play. So what it does, intersection observer, it's literally what it says. So it observes like the viewport, the browser's viewport, and based on either our elements in that viewport or outside, or if they are, I don't know, specific, if they are spaced away a specific amount of those intersections, you can do some actions. You can execute some JavaScript. I won't get into like too much details, like how is it implemented, because I suggest looking at that MDN documentation. They have the best documentation for front end. So just Google intersection observer MDN, and yeah, it's Mozilla's documentation. It's just amazing. But basically, you just observe that element, you want to do something with it, and then based on if that element is in viewport or not, you have some callback functions and do actions. Yeah, I won't say the whole like code right now, because yeah, everything's on MDN and it is a bit too complex just to say it with words. But yeah, look at MDN.
Definitely. Awesome. That was a great explanation. I hope that answered your question. Ziad and Dweez, do you guys have anything to add about intersection observer?
I had no idea what it was until Dom explained it.
Neither-
So you learn.
Fantastic. Okay, let's jump to another question. I'm actually going to jump back just quickly to our questions that we had about how to get into tech in general. So maybe everybody can jump into this conversation. So what advice would you give yourself in the beginning of your career? We'll start with Dweez on this one.
I already answered that, actually.
Do you want to jump into like maybe a more in-depth analysis or something that you didn't add in? Or are you good with that first answer? People that
No,
joined?
so for those who weren't here earlier, I basically said that it's if I could give an advice to myself, that would be to just make sure I am at peace with verbalizing what I know and what I don't know. Because if you verbalize what you don't know, people can help you out, your co-workers, whoever you are deferring to for advice. And that is what I said, and I will stick to that.
I love that. Stick your morals. I love it. Ziad, do you have anything more to add to that?
I like Dweez's way of saying, like, if I were to give myself advice, I'll roll with the same format. I think, yeah, like, if I were definitely to look back and give my younger self advice, it would be to, like, just, like, read more in depth into, like, how a lot of things work. Like, don't just look at, like, API documentation, for example, and just, like, copy and paste code from online without like fully understanding what's actually happening. Like I realize now that the best like software engineers will usually have like an understanding of how things work underneath the hood, because the thing is like nowadays you can learn, like we always mention React, for example, you can learn React off of like a boot camp or online course or YouTube or whatever, and just learn like how to use it, but not necessarily know like what is going on underneath the hood. Like why did the designers of React like take certain decisions? And even though that's not going to help you in your day-to-day job necessarily, it'll help you when you're like a little bit more advanced in your career and you're making like higher level technical decisions, because like when you're an engineer, you can like you're gonna grow inevitably. Like you're gonna get older, and like new grads are gonna come in, and you're gonna be like the senior engineer now, and that responsibility of taking like higher level technical decisions is gonna fall on you. And when like new technologies come out, if you have that like foundational understanding, you can like analyze them and know whether or not they're actually good. Like React is now like the dominant language, but there's new frameworks coming out like almost every week. Like there's just things that are propping up, open source projects that people are working on. And if you have like a deep foundational knowledge of how like things work and what decisions are being made when people are creating these new technologies, then you can be really good at like analyzing whether something is like a breakthrough technology or just like, it looks pretty but it's actually not that good, for example. So I think I would tell myself to like read deeper into how things work and understand like foundational knowledge. Thanks for the gift. It's awesome.
Fantastic. That was a great overview of the answer. We'll throw it to Dom for this last one. So any more advice that you would give yourself at the beginning of your career?
What would I give? Advice that I would give myself at the beginning of career would be seek knowledge. That's the most important thing at the beginning. Like money is not that important as knowledge. If you know some companies where engineering standards are really high and you'll have mentors there, just go for them, because that long term that will have like the highest return of investment. Because if you get amazing engineering knowledge in the first 2-3 years of your career, you can basically work anywhere, and like you can demand really high salaries and everything. So yeah, just seek knowledge, seek great mentors, and also ask a lot of questions. Like don't anything that you have in mind, just ask, and you need to communicate too. I know some people who, I don't know, they want to have something. For example, they are doing front end, but they want to do back end too, but they don't tell it to anyone. They just complain to their friends. But maybe you need to tell that to the company. If you tell that to the company, to your manager, then people will know, and when they will be making plans for the future, then they will take into your account like everything you said to them. So yeah, ask questions, communicate, seek knowledge, and thanks, Shahar. You're the best.
Definitely. Great answers, you guys. We're going to head back to some questions in the chat. So if you guys have any more, feel free to drop them. So the next question is there a difference between software developer and software engineer? Who wants to answer this first?
No, in my opinion. I don't think there's like a strong difference. I've seen jobs like use the terms pretty interchangeably, but yeah, what do you guys think? Have you seen differences?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't think there's like a specific thing in dictionary. Maybe it is actually in dictionary, but nobody follows it. Like some companies will say software developer, some companies will say software engineer. I mean, engineers should be something like a bit more broad and like solving more complex problems, but you do that as a software developer too. So I don't think that industry has agreed on some specific differences. It's just like, I would say it's the same thing. I refer to myself as an engineer just because it sounds cooler. But that's just like the same thing.
Fantastic. Great answer. Another question. We're ripping through these. I want to make sure we get through all of them because I know we're having tons of questions in the chat, which is fantastic. So the next question we have is it possible to get a job, a trainee in brackets, after courses? I'm from the Ukraine and I'm moving soon to the US.
Yep, I can answer that.
Sure, come in.
Yeah, it's 100%. It's possible to get a job. It's possible to get a job in tech with everything. So like, they're self-taught devs that are completely like self-taught. They paid like literally $0 to get their first job, and they were just like going through free materials on YouTube, on Twitter, Reddit, or any other like programming platforms, blogs, whatever. So it's definitely possible to get it. You have some other paid courses, I don't know, like Udemy, which are pretty cheap. Other cool options are boot camps. That's, in my opinion, the best if you can afford it, because you'll get, the field is really massive, and if you go into alone, of course it is possible, but it will take you some time, and it might be demotivating because you don't know where to look at, because there's like a million different things in tech and thousands of different teachers around the industry. So yeah, bootcamp, that will just, that will teach you literally everything you need to know to get your first job. So it will definitely pay off. By the way, we have bootcamps. Practicum have bootcamps. So yeah, if you're interested, check out our bio. We have links there. Yeah, there are amazing bootcamps, and most of the students, I think stats say 87% or 90%, something like that, get their jobs in the first 6 months after the bootcamp. So like, yeah, that's just a proof that we literally teach you everything you need to know to get a job. But yeah, everything is possible. You don't need to take it if you can't afford it. Yeah, just anything. Anything's possible if you decide that you want to be a developer. Yeah, like anything's possible.
Definitely. And if you're, we just had somebody from the Ukraine actually go through our program, and they wanted to speed up their process because they were like urgent to get a job. So if that's something you're interested in too, like they can definitely make accommodations for that instance as well. So you're welcome to reach out to us, any of our career advisors, and they're going to jump in and they're going to help you get a job as soon as possible, especially if you're moving in from the Ukraine. Obviously, we help all of our students, but that's just a scenario. Does anybody else want to jump in on that question there, or should we move to the next one? Everybody
We can
feels
move to the
good?
next one. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. So next question is, can somebody learn programming and Python programming together? Combining the two seems to be hard. Who wants to jump in?
I'll get into this one.
Sure.
So, yeah, basically the question is if it's possible to learn R, programming, and Python, which are two common languages used in data analysis and data analysis. And I would never recommend to learn two programming languages at once because you can get things confused with each other. R and Python are two completely different languages. Python is, I think, it writes more simple than R, in my opinion. But I, I look, the two languages, they kind of go hand in hand with each other. Like if you know both of them, it's extremely useful, especially if you also know SQL next to them. But I would not learn both of them at the same time. I would first start with one and then do the other. I think starting with Python can be more friendly for beginners, unless you're crazy like me. I did R before I learned Python. So yeah, I think rather than learning both at once, you should just focus on one and after that the other because I don't think it's a good idea to learn both two languages at the same time. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with what you said. I think that's pretty good answer.
yeah, 100%. You
Definitely.
said everything.
Yeah, one at a time. Take it one at a time and then go from there. Like master the first one and move on to the next. Fantastic. Okay, next question.
Thank you. The Christmas tree.
Folks. So our next question in the chat here is, do you usually fall into multiple projects at the same time and deliver on time? Because I know deliverables can be hard, especially if we have multiple things going at the same time. So this is kind of a multitasking organization question. Somebody want to jump in and answer this?
Yeah, I could take this one. I think like in a typical software engineering role, if you're familiar with like how engineering practices usually are, basically they use this method called like sprints, and essentially like a sprint will be like this 2 week like period of time where you're just gonna get like a set of tasks that you're gonna have to like finish within that 2 week period. So and like each one of these tasks usually contribute to like a wider range of projects that are being worked on. So like for example, like your manager or boss like might have outlined like these are the three projects that like our team want to work on these in this particular like quarter, for example. And each sprint, like someone from each person from the team will have one task that like contributes to each project. So you're essentially like you're always working on multiple projects at the same time because that's how the companies usually like advance pretty quickly. And I think that like software engineering practices have advanced pretty like are pretty good in terms of like how to manage like these large scale projects. So I haven't found it to be an issue to like multitask in a sense on multiple projects. You're always going to be working like on one task like at a time. I think the thing that like people usually need to like work a little bit to master is like switching contexts when it comes to engineering. So like you might have one task that's like fully front end and you're like really into it and you're doing like a lot of web development, and then you finish it and like the next task on your sprint might be like completely back end oriented and you have to like completely switch context to and switch programming languages even sometimes. And that's I think like what people need to like master over time. But I think overall like a lot of if you're at a good company and they're using like modern engineering practices, it won't be too difficult to like balance multiple kind of tasks at the same time. So that's at least been my experience.
Definitely great answer. I want to shout out Rex really quick. I know Tweez kind of shouted him out. That was a lot of roses. Thank you very much. Feel free to give us a follow and we're waiting for questions. We're answering everybody's questions in the chat. It's all about how to get into tech. So feel free to drop all your questions in the chat because we're getting to almost all of them today, which is super exciting. Fantastic answers, Ziad. Thank you so much for going into detail on that. We're going to jump to the next question here unless somebody wants to jump in and piggyback off Ziad. Otherwise, feeling good? Everybody? No? Cool. Next question. What is better, front end or back end? What's the jump in?
That's.
I'm not gonna say it.
Yeah, I mean that's really subjective. Like,
yep.
I don't know. For me, I would say front end is better for me. That's why I picked it. I love it more because it's visual, and I'm just a visual type of person. So it's like I love it more. But it's really subjective. So you can't say one is better than other. It's like you should try both and see what you like more, and then like you will be able to say for yourself, I don't know, front end is better for you or back end is better for you, but there's not like objective answer, oh yeah, front end is better or back end is better. I don't know if guys you would love to add something.
Yeah, I think I'd like to just mention a couple of reasons I've heard from people about like why each is better. Like for me,
Yeah.
definitely, I'm also like more of a front end person because I like to see like instant feedback on my work. So like when I code something in the other screen right next to it, I can see like visually like how things look and like does this look right or off or something, and I can like immediately adjust code and see like the result of that. I know a lot of people like backend because it's a little bit more like logical in a sense, and for somebody who prefers that style of programming where it's like, it's not as much like, no, why isn't this thing working? Like I'm setting all the right values and properties or something, and like it's not looking right on the screen. The problems are a little bit less abstract when it comes to backend development. It's usually like a piece of logic is just like not executing correctly, and for people who are more into that side of coding, they prefer that a little bit. I will say, like, I've been doing a lot more backend development recently just because of like the work, like type of work that I'm doing, even though I enjoy front end more. And backend also has a lot more like breadth in general. So like if you're someone who likes to be constantly learning and constantly like seeing new things and not as much like mastering one thing and continuously getting better at it, I think like a lot of people would prefer backend from that perspective as well. So those are just some of the reasons I've heard.
Definitely. I want to see, we have 45 people in the chat right now. I want to see if you're team front end or team back end. So put it in the chat. Great answers, you guys. Thank you so much. I'm excited to see what our majority of our people are saying about it. Next question here is, as a front end, should you learn CSS frameworks before moving into JS?
I can maybe answer that.
Sure.
So I don't think you should learn CSS frameworks because they before JS, your route should be HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then I would even suggest picking a JavaScript framework before CSS framework. It's a problem with CSS frameworks because they come away quickly, they die quickly, and you just like focus on core CSS knowledge, and that will stay with you. Even many companies use things like SCSS and even pure CSS, because pure CSS is becoming more and more powerful with all the other features of which other preprocessors add. So yeah, I would rather suggest jump into JavaScript framework that's widely used, like React, and that will get you a job much easier than if you, I don't know, try to learn Bootstrap or Tailwind. If you know core CSS, to be honest, nobody cares if you know Bootstrap or Tailwind because they know you will pick it up easily. But if you know JavaScript but you don't know any other frameworks, you don't know React, that it's gonna be harder to get a job, because if learning things like React, it's not only about the framework, it's more about core front-end concepts like breaking UIs into components, reusability of those components, props, and like all props state, like so many different things that you can do with pure JavaScript, but people don't usually do it when they start. So yeah, just like knowing Bootstrap probably won't get you a job, but knowing React will definitely help you get a job.
Are we in agreement, team? Yeah, 2 nods. Cool. Great answer, Dom. I love that. Thank you guys so much for your gifts too, and keep those questions coming in the chat. We're answering all of them. We're making our way through the list. This one I think everybody can answer, so I'm going to ask everyone, all of our creators, about this. But how do you find a mentor? Like, where are you looking to find these mentors? Like, are you looking online? Are you looking in your company? Are you looking for friends and family? Jump in. Let's start with Dweez in the middle.
Yeah, how to find a mentor. All of those communities where you have programmers like Stack Overflow. There are communities on Free Code Camp, I believe, as well. There's a lot of communities for developers that on Reddit even, that they are always, especially on Stack Overflow, if you have users that are really active, you can always send them a message and always ask them if they have time for it, of course, and if they do charge to help you out, whatever, because it is time of them that you are asking. You should take that into consideration as well. But I think in a lot of and communities online, I think the best way to do it is just send a message and engage with people, have conversations with them. That's how I would look for a mentor. I don't know where else you can look for mentors. Do you guys have anything?
Yeah, do you want to jump?
Yeah, I mean, so I found it kind of difficult to like go up to someone and say like, "Can you be my mentor?" Because like the first thing that just comes up to their mind is like, "Oh, like it's gonna be a time commitment. Like I'm gonna have to, like do a lot to really like, help you out." And like most people aren't like super generous with their time to that extent, So it's like I think the way that you kind of ask is important. In my opinion, you don't really ask someone to be your mentor. You more like just kind of like find ways to work with them, or like find opportunities to just like, if it's someone that's not at your company, like maybe it's a relative or someone far away, like, grab lunch with them, just ask them, like invite them out to coffee, stuff like that, like where you're like implicitly getting them as your mentor, but it's like in their mind, it's like it's not like a commitment or something, you guys are just friends, like, and you could ask them questions like along the way of things that you want to learn more about. If it's someone within your company, then like I would highly recommend just like finding ways to work with that person. If you're in engineering in particular, like something I usually do is just have people review my code. Like for example, like if it's someone that I really know is a lot better than me at engineering, I'm like, hey, could you like take a look at this, make sure it's all good, and inevitably they're gonna, like give me comments about it, help me out, give me suggestions on how to get better. So I think like how you kind of court someone to be your mentor is like the most important part in this particular field.
Definitely. Dom, do you want to jump in? Where do you find a mentor?
Yep. So where do you find a mentor? If you like, or if you're already working in a company, then as Ziad said, like, yeah, communicate with people to review your pull requests and review your code. That's a great thing to do. And it's also cool because then you can find kind of like a free mentor and learn as a part of your job. To be honest, when you start your job, you should have maybe not a direct mentor, but somebody should review your code. If you start a new job, it's your first job, and nobody tells you anything about your code, you should seek new companies immediately. Like literally, start searching new jobs today because you're not learning enough. Like people, senior and mid-level engineers should comment your code all the time, and you should be learning and seeking knowledge. So it's not a joke. Like literally, start searching your new job because your company, you can do better, and you will increase your potential if you search for companies that review code. Other things are you can ask your friends if you have friends developers to mentor you, or I don't know. I'm a mentor, so I personally help people. I've helped some people to get into tech from like non-CS backgrounds because I want to give back to community, and I work one-on-one with people. So that's an option. You can go to my page and book a call. And I think that would be it for me.
Definitely. We have I see that there's some chat going on in the box here just about mentorship. And Faith says, I'm just going to read this off because this is really good advice, is mentors don't always have to be technical. They it's nice. It could just be like a leadership role in your life. She also says that the balance is helpful the balance is so helpful to providing balance, which I do agree with that as well. So thank you so much for chiming in, Faith. Very helpful.
Yep. Just to add one thing on that mentors don't need to be technical. That's 100% true because people I've been working with, it's not only about that coding knowledge. It's more about, of course, imposter syndrome, and they're thinking that they are not smart enough to break into tech, and that's too hard, or all those like hot topics. That is true. So my huge part is just telling them and making them realize that they are definitely smart enough, that they can learn it, and that they will get the job sooner or later. Because if you're persistent with it, if you have good advice, if you build your portfolio, learn to code, and if you are motivated and passionate, you just need to find one company, and that's it. There's a million companies in the world, and you just need to find one. Definitely, like 100% agree with that non-technical part.
Absolutely, great question, or great answer. Sorry, I'm getting lost. So about 10 minutes left in the live, so we're gonna jump into maybe 2 to 3 more questions to see how quick you can get through them. I'm gonna jump into this one because I know this is true for everybody. How much Googling are you guys doing on a regular basis with coding? I feel like everybody can answer this question. Start at the top, we'll go to the bottom. Ziad, you're up first.
I do a lot of Googling, definitely like a good bit. I think like while I'm coding, I definitely like look up stuff that I obviously not too keen on. And also like recently I found myself just Googling like company related things, like not specific to my company, but like for example, like I'm a software engineer and like all of a sudden I'm working with like a lot of different roles. So like I'm working with product managers, for example. There's like roles called solutions engineers, like a lot of different kind of roles within a company. And sometimes I'll just like have no idea like what this person's like role is or like responsibility is within a company. And I found myself having to like Google a lot of just like terminology and like understanding like how a company's organization is structured and stuff like that. And as I mentioned earlier, like reading documentation is something I do a lot, especially when it comes to like new technologies. So I definitely end up Googling a lot of that as well. I'll always have like one tab with Google and everything else like on another monitor as well.
Oh,
So
I love that. I feel like I've seen so many memes of if you don't know the answer, you just Google it as a coder, which I feel like is very true. Dweez, do you Google a lot when you're coding?
I think it's necessary, yeah. I mean, for me at least, I don't remember everything, especially syntax. I'm terrible with it. So while there are some things that you know how to do, but you don't like remember, like you just forget some basic things. That's why for me at least, I end up using Google a lot. Um, I think as you code though, as you use Google, you just get better at it as well. I think it's a skill on its own that developers should have. It's not talked a lot about a lot, but I think it's a new requirement. I almost think it's necessary because with all of the developments in tech right now and all of the new things coming in, it's just impossible for one person to remember everything.
Definitely.
Unless they're super smart. You have cases like that, of course, but for me, it doesn't work like that. So
I feel like I'm on the same. Definitely. Dom, do you do a lot of Googling when you're doing code?
Yeah, definitely. I Google a lot. It's like that bias that Googling is cheating, but not. Googling is a skill, and everybody Googles, not just beginners. Like juniors Google, mid levels, seniors, staff engineers. Like everybody Googles. As you like grow more as a senior, there are some as a developer, there are some things you kind of learn just because you use them every day. So I don't know. I use array.filter in JavaScript so often that I just know it by heart. But and yeah, there are like some concepts that you know immediately, but many of them you don't because you check them once and then you forget about the syntax and you just need to Google them. For example, there was a question about intersection observer in this chat a few minutes ago. And to be honest, I wouldn't know how to set up an intersection observer right now without Googling. I know the theory behind it, and I know that if I Google it and search on MDN, I would set it up in 20 seconds. But I wouldn't know it's out of my head immediately, and that's not the point. It's not point to remember everything. It's not. We're not engineers because we remember everything, but we are engineers because we can find the solution in the shortest possible time. So it's not like working for a company. It's not or coding anything. It's not like an exam in college. So yeah, like any way you can come to an efficient solution, a proper solution, just do it. And yeah, Googling is definitely a skill. And don't be afraid to Google. Learn how to Google as good as possible.
Yeah, utilize that search engine. It's there for a reason. It's a resource. Might as well use it if you have access to it. Cool. Okay, we have about 6 minutes left, so I'm gonna jump into a question that I think is super helpful for people to learn about. So our question is, do you have any advice on how to make your portfolio stand out to employers? Because I know people in tech all have portfolio projects of what they've been working on. So who wants to jump in and answer this first? Anybody have one off the top of their head?
Maybe I can answer on that.
Sure.
So first, I would say that create a beautiful website that is kind of like eye-catchy, wonderful. You can go, for example, on Figma community, and there's a lot of like great designs there, and just make a beautiful website. That's the first step. The second one is it's not enough just to link that portfolio on your resume in a way that it's just like a small property there because not many people will click at it. So the trick that I used, I literally made my portfolio. I made it really large font size, and I even had like even larger text like click me and an arrow that points to my portfolio and that points to my link. Before I didn't have that, and I tracked analytics on my website, and I didn't get a lot of views. Like I've sent a lot of CVs, but I didn't get a lot of views because nobody clicks on it. It's like resume, a lot of text, and now you have like URL to your portfolio. Nobody cares, to be honest. But when I added that click me and an arrow, then I started getting so much views on my portfolio. So I would highly suggest like making it really big on your resume. Otherwise, just a few people will click it, and you'll invest so much time into it that nobody will see it. And about portfolio projects themselves, try to search something that's not that common. I don't know, like Pocketx app or Calculator or those like apps to do lists. That's that's really common. So try to also maybe on Figma get some cool ideas, or I don't know, Google for some cool unique ideas for portfolio. But to be honest, like focus more on the actual website. How does it look like? And focus on people actually going to that website, because uh, companies get a lot of applications and they won't have 1 hour to go through your whole portfolio, look deeply into your projects, look deeply into your code. So at best, they will open that link, just take a look at your portfolio in a couple of seconds, maybe a minute, and that's it. Who knows? Maybe they will jump to your other projects. It's not that likely. So yeah, make sure it looks cool. But yeah, that website is the most important part. For me, everything else is much less relevant. And it was like that in my experience. To be honest, I've never had, when I was applying for jobs, I've never had any personal portfolio projects. I just had a really cool website and people were clicking on it, and that's it. And I think if I had some cool personal projects, that wouldn't help me too much.
Definitely. I feel like it's all about like who you are as a person too. Like, what do you want to showcase? Faith jumped in and also said, know your audience. Not all hiring managers are technical enough to see value in your portfolio, which I would deem true as well. Ziad or Dweez, do you guys have portfolios? Like, do you have anything to add in these last couple minutes here about portfolios?
Yeah, I don't have like a portfolio website per se, but like when I was first applying to jobs, I definitely had like side projects that I had put on there, especially when I had like zero experience coming out of like a college environment. I think those are really important because, like, let's be honest, like building like a calculator app or a weather app isn't gonna like, you know, it's not gonna prove to the company that you're an amazing software engineer or like that you can build anything or anything like that. But I think the most important thing is that it shows proactivity. So it's like when a company is evaluating you, it's like, oh, okay, like everybody like these days has either a college degree or a boot camp or something. Like everybody has some kind of foundational knowledge, right? So what really makes people stand apart is like when you have side projects or when you've participated in hackathons or things like that, it shows that you're like actually passionate about like learning. You're pretty curious. You actually like the field. And a hiring manager told me that like essentially when they're making decisions on whether to hire you or not, with anybody, not just like people with no experience, they're looking for like signs or indicators that like this person is going to pan out and be like a pretty good engineer. And when you're really young and like just out of college or just out of a boot camp, the number of indicators on your resume is like very small, right? So like they're looking for some kind of like signals that you're going to be good. So if you can add something like a side project, like like a hackathon or something like that, that's just like an additional signal that you're showing to some of these hiring managers that I am going to be a good engineer. So I think like when you think about it in that frame of mind, it's like the manager is looking for reasons to hire me, and like I'm adding reasons to my resume. Then I think you're gonna definitely be better off.
Definitely. Dweez, do you have anything to add to this convo before we wrap up?
No, I agree with Dom and Ziad, especially with like having a website, as Dom said. I think it's a very nice way to showcase your skills as a developer. I've seen people do it as well.
Yeah, I think I would personally, like, I have a portfolio. I would highly recommend jumping in and and doing a portfolio, because it just like it's a little bit more elevated. Somebody might not do it in the process. So if you have time to do it, I would recommend doing one, whether it be Dom's way or Ziad's way or a completely different way. So yeah, well, I want to thank all the creators and everybody that joined this convo today. And thank you so much for jumping in and asking all these questions. It was super, super helpful. And hopefully it answered a lot of your questions that everybody has here. So we are here every Wednesday. Ziad, it's your time zone. What time is it there right now? Is it 12:30?
It is 10:30 right now, but we're here at 9:30.
We're here at 9:30. 10:30 my time. I'm a little bit in a different area than Ziad is. So make sure you join every Wednesday. We do answer as many questions as we can in the chat. Feel free to follow us and check us some likes because we're always here to answer your questions. Creators, do you have anything to say before we leave?
Yep, thanks everyone. Thanks for all the gifts. Thanks for all the attention. And yep, we'll be here in a week. Follow us because we share a lot of knowledge about literally anything you need to get into tech and beyond. Yeah, thanks everyone.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I liked having, I know Faith and a couple of other folks, we participated in some awesome conversations, so I appreciate that.
Definitely. And what time was that again, Ziad? Just to reiterate for those people that are joining.
9:30 p.m. or 9:30 a.m. Pacific time zone.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Awesome. Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.